Welcome to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today Sam Prouty, who's the Executive Director of Admissions at Middlebury College in beautiful Vermont. Sam, I'm so happy to have you here today. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for having me.
Well, it is our delight for sure, and we're honored to have you. So, Sam, let's get right to it. What is it about Middlebury College that you love, and what are some of the distinctive academic programs or majors that set it apart from other colleges and universities?
So Middlebury is a liberal arts college, or as we say, a liberal arts and sciences college, and this means different things to different people. But what I love is the mission statement of Middlebury includes the phrase that we are engaged in solving the world's most complex problems. And I really believe that. I really believe that a great liberal arts education looks at problems. You know, I always say the problems of the world did not major in something in college, right? So I love the idea that, you know, our pre-med students might be studying the science of medicine, but they're also studying global health. They're studying the economics of healthcare systems. They're studying the public policy and political science and pre-law, all involved in, you know, delivering healthcare. Or our environmental studies students are not just studying ozone depletion or energy renewability. They're studying architecture and design as those things relate to environmental problems. They're studying, you know, green investing, etc. And so I think one of the things I like about Middlebury is that we really are engaged in trying to solve problems with this multidisciplinary lens. We do that all within the confines of a small, tight-knit community of 2,500 students that just happens to be located in, you know, this utopian paradise of the Green Mountains and, you know, lovely small New England towns. And, you know, so to have that educational mission within the backdrop of just a really beautiful place to live where we all are pretty tight-knit and we know each other and we care about each other, that's what has kept me here for 10 years and will keep me here for a while. Particular programs, Middlebury's always been a language school, anything related to international studies, the study of foreign languages. We actually have a graduate program in California focusing on those issues as well. So anything related to international, sort of solving the world's international problems and getting to know other cultures and other languages, that's big at Middlebury. Anything related to writing has always been strong. Environmental studies, that cross-disciplinary look at environmental problems, that's a long-standing, strong major here. But this is also a place where kids major in, you know, math and statistics and computer science, and that might surprise people. But a liberal arts college can be great for those outcomes as well.
Well, that's a great review, and you provided tremendous examples of what a liberal arts education truly is. You spoke about the multidisciplinary learning opportunities and how you have 2,500 students, of course, in the beautiful town of Middlebury, Vermont. So I know that your backdrop is absolutely stunning, and I'm sure there's probably some good skiing in the area, right, Sam?
I didn't, you know, it's funny. I didn't learn how to ski until I was 38, and I only learned when my children took lessons, which, by the way, they took from Middlebury College students at our snow bowl.
Awesome.
And I love. I mean, it's my favorite thing. So yeah, you're never too old to learn something new.
Well, speaking of learning something new, many students obviously are interested in extracurricular activities and clubs when they attend college. So, Sam, can you describe some of the other most popular or unique clubs and organizations available on campus? And how do these enhance students' overall experience?
Yeah, Great question. About 28% of our students will participate in a varsity sport. So certainly athletics are popular. We have 31 varsity sports in Division III, a number of club and intramural sports as well. There's lots of students, there's 200 clubs and activities at a school like Middlebury. And what I love, not to give the sales pitch to your listeners, but what I love about a liberal arts college is that what you study is not necessarily related to those opportunities, right? So you can be a chemistry major, and if you happen to be a great musician who's a chemistry major, you're in the orchestra, you're in the a cappella groups, etc. You're in the theater programs. But lots of clubs and activities certainly related to community service. Students are active in this town and beyond, helping our local communities, translating for migrant farmers, translating in medical offices around here. Certainly the performing arts are big. We have a weekly student newspaper that's very popular, clubs related to the various identities that our students hold, and sort of affinity spaces in those areas. Our kids tend to be pretty politically active. They really just run the gamut, and then there's the fun weird stuff, like, what we call quad ball, or what used to be called Quidditch. And, I take my kids swimming in the pool, and sometimes we see, the log rolling team, doing their thing. So there's schools like this are great places to get really involved, even if those involvements are not related to what you might study or do for a living.
Well, it's definitely a great place to get involved, not only in your classrooms and beyond. And I appreciate the overview again of all your academic programs and your clubs. And I mentioned that because I recently read that your retention rate is 94%. That means the percentage of freshmen that return after that first year, which is amazing because the national average is somewhere around 70%. So, Sam, what is the secret to finding, first of all, the right freshman class and keeping them happy and wanting to return once they're on your campus?
Boy, I wish I really had a good answer to that I could just bottle and sell. But I think, our process in the admissions office, we really are, this is an overused term, but we do practice a holistic review. And what that really means is I'm not just looking at a transcript and a score when I review an application. We're trying to get to know these young people. Who are you? What makes you tick? Who are you in the process of becoming? And how do you fit our institution well? And if we get that right, then we're going to be enrolling students who are a good cultural fit for the institution, who are a good fit for the kind of community that we have around here. And so I think it sort of happens by accident, to be honest. But I think that, if we've gotten good at that, we are attracting and enrolling students who are a good fit for the school, who then find what they are looking for here, right? They're not surprised. Oh, gee, I thought I was going to school in the middle of Manhattan. How did I wind up in Vermont? Right? Hopefully there's no surprise. And students are finding, the culture that they're looking for. And I think Middlebury's, I'm biased. Middlebury's a great place to go to school, right? There's a ton of support. It's a beautiful place. It's a close community. And so I think students are finding the support systems they need to thrive. And so when we lose students, I don't necessarily think it's because they're unhappy. I think it might be because they get a year in and they realize, I want to go to a college with a digital marketing department, and we don't happen to have that or something. But for the most part, the Middlebury students I interact with are, they are happy to be here. They feel supported, and so they're happy to stay.
Well, I appreciate how you touched upon your holistic application review and that you're not just looking at a transcript and a score, but how you're really looking to find students that have the Middlebury fit, but also you want students that are going to contribute to that awesome community that you have. So, having said all that, Sam, could you provide additional insights into your application review process? And what other key factors are you looking for when considering applicants?
So you and I both know, as educators, there are lots of kids who have straight A's. There are lots of kids who take all the, hard classes at their high school. And so what might surprise your listeners is or what sometimes surprises people I talk to, is that the number, believe it or not, is not the most important thing, right? Oh, I have a 4.68 weighted GPA and my classmate has a 4.52. I don't really care, right? At that point, what I care about, you know, who are you as a human being right now, and who are you becoming, and how can I help you become that person? And so, for me, the list of activities, how is the student engaging in their community, whether that's school or town or nation or globe? Um, who are you, in your essay, right? Real students out there, if you're listening to this, write an essay that lets us get to know you, not one that is a resume regurgitation or a brag sheet, right? Really let me see who you are and what makes you tick and what you think about the world. And, if you're funny, make me laugh. And if you're serious, that's okay too. Um, what do the teacher recommendations say? John, you and I both know as teachers, again, you can have two students in the same class with the same grade, but what the teacher says about who those kids are and what they're contributing to class might be radically different. And so those are the pieces that get us excited. And those are the pieces that I think elevate the student beyond just a GPA or, a number of AP classes taken. And it's the essays, it's the recommendations, it's the community engagement that makes us sit around in our committee and say, ooh, this one, this is the one that we really want to have around here.
Well, Sam, I really appreciate the fact that you talked about how it's not just a number or a GPA, but you're really looking to get to know who the student is, right? And how they're going to contribute. So, what other advice would you give to prospective students to make their applications really stand out in the selection process? And are there any common mistakes, for example, or misconceptions that applicants should be aware of?
My best advice, or at least some of the advice I would give students out there, really figure out what makes you you. And ideally, the answer to that question is not something that somebody else could also say, right? So if you are a tremendous cross country runner, that's great. And you could write about that and you can put that all over your application. But the truth is, lots of kids run cross country, and maybe lots of kids are really good at running cross country. But maybe it's, coaching younger kids how to run. Maybe it's, you have a 7-year-old little sister and you're teaching her how to be a great runner. Maybe there's something beyond just the sort of stereotypical, I won the big race
Hmm.
that you could, that maybe a story that you could tell us that's a little more personal, that's a little more distinctive and unique to you. I think those are the parts that help students really stand out. The students who are involved in community, again, not in a braggy way, not, hey, I'm solving cancer, but it can be very small. It can be very localized. What makes us pay attention is when we read about something that we feel like, only this student could say that, right? This is
Hmm.
something that is truly distinctive to the life of this one person, rather than just, I was the captain of the hockey team and we won the big game. Nothing against that, but you know, every hockey player who's ever won a big game could write that. And so I think really trying to focus on those pieces that make you stand out as distinctively and uniquely you. That's the stuff that we're interested in.
Well, I appreciate that. You gave the example of athletes, which of course there are many, but rather than just talking about being an athlete, what did you do? What was the innovation? For example, maybe you taught younger kids how to play your sport. Maybe, as one of the older kids in your sport, you're tutoring some of the younger children within whatever club you're playing for, or something like that to make you stand out, as opposed to just saying, I play hockey, I won the big game. That's great. So many other kids could match that profile. Is that right, Sam?
100%. And and again, sometimes the coolest stuff is the esoteric stuff. I mean, I've read great essays about learning how to drive a stick shift. I've read great
Hmm.
essays about, teaching your toddler cousins how to play croquet, right? It doesn't the topic doesn't matter
Right.
if the story that you're telling us is lets us get to see your personality a little bit. The same with the performing arts. You might love theater, but you might frankly not be a great actor. That's
Hmm.
okay if you can still show me about, why, what is it about being on stage, even as a mediocre actor? What is it about doing that that really lights you on fire? And that could actually be a better essay than the kid who, is going to go off and win an Academy Award someday.
Well, that's awesome. And it's not the first time that a college admissions representative mentions that the topic of the essay really doesn't matter, but it's how you approach the topic and really let your personality shine, right? Because we talk about it all the time. You want to admit students that number one could handle the work on your campus, but you also are building that community, right? So you want to see what they've done inside and outside of the classroom so that you could get a good idea in terms of the type of roommate they're going to be, the type of classmate they're going to be, the type of community member they're going to be, and of course, how they plan on contributing. So, again, we really appreciate that. Sam, what are the different ways a student may apply? And is there a benefit to applying one way over the other in terms of admissions or receiving merit based scholarships? And what I'm talking about, do you have early decision, early action, regular, and what have you?
Like most smaller colleges, Middlebury does have early decision, which
Hmm.
is a binding program, and we do not have early action, which is,
Hmm.
of course, not binding. And so, what I say to students, early decision, a binding early decision program at a college is the engagement ring of the college process. So that is your way, students out there. That is your way of saying to the college, I've seen them all. You are the one that I'm in love with. So let's have a future. And so if you apply to a college in a binding early decision, the majority of those schools, including Middlebury, do have a higher admit rate because again, you are asserting I in my heart and in my gut, I feel that I am a great fit for this institution. And often we agree that those early decision students are a particularly good fit. And so I think if a student out there is in love with the school and they've got a good academic profile that would make them competitive, early decision can be to at least some degree an advantage in the process because it's again would you rather go out with somebody who's just asking you on a date or would you rather get the diamond ring? And so that level of commitment says something. At Middlebury, we do not offer merit scholarships at all. It's all need-based financial aid. And something I definitely want your listeners to hear me say is your financial aid package would not be different no matter when you apply or in what program. We meet full need for all enrolling students, full stop, end of sentence. There's no financial advantage or disadvantage to applying early or regular. We're gonna meet your full demonstrated need no matter what.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you talked about early decision, which of course is binding, and the fact that you have a higher admit rate within your early decision rounds. But students, you have to understand that you still have to have great academics in order to be accepted. Just because you apply ED doesn't mean that you're an automatic shoe in. Obviously, you have to have that good academic profile. And of course, as we mentioned, that out of the classroom profile in terms of the type of community member you're going to be. And I want to repeat one more time that you are need based in terms of financial aid. And it's no different whether you apply early decision or regular in terms of the package that you would receive in terms of financial aid. Anything else you want to add to that, Sam?
No, I think that covers it, but I would underscore what you said. Applying early decision should not be like buying a scratch ticket, right? So don't just decide, I'd love to go to fill in the blank school. Look, do your research. If your school uses Naviance or another kind of program like that, look at the numbers. If you're looking at a school with a 10% admit rate and you have a B minus average, early decision is probably not going to make a difference. And so, spend that early decision chip wisely, and do your good research and know that you're at least going to be in the running.
Well, that's great advice. I appreciate it, Sam. And I know that Middlebury, like many other schools, is test optional. So, can you share the percentage of students that apply and who are ultimately admitted that did not submit their test scores?
So for us, it's about half and half in both groups. And what your listeners should all here's the question, audience, that you should ask. Not just how many students applied without testing, but how many kids who got admitted also didn't have testing. That's your litmus test, because if those numbers match up, then the college is telling you the truth when they say, applying with or without testing really doesn't matter. And so at mid, about half of our applicants have applied with/without testing, and in the admit pool, it's also roughly half and half. If a school tells you 70% applied with no tests, but 70% of those who got in had the testing, well, frankly, then you can conclude that the testing is playing a role at that school. So what I'm trying to get at is that students, your decision to submit tests or not is going to be individual school by school. It's not going to be a blanket decision that you make for all the schools to which you apply.
Well, Sam, that is such a great point, and I'm glad I asked the question because, again, at Middlebury, 50% of the students submitted test scores and 50% did not in terms of when they applied. And the same was true in terms of your accepted students. There were 50% that were admitted that submitted and 50% that did not. And I love your point that if a school says they're test optional, and it's 50-50 in terms of your applicants and then 50-50 in terms of the students that are actually accepted, then you're right. Then, the school really means what they say because the applicant pool is mirroring the percentage of students that did not submit that were actually accepted. So I really appreciate that insight. Thank you so much, Sam. And student support services are crucial, obviously, for ensuring academic success, personal well-being, and so much more. So, Sam, what resources does Middlebury College provide to support students in their academic and personal development?
Great question. In terms of academic development, not every single student is going to come in here with the preparation to knock it out of the park every day in every discipline. And so we have a wonderful program called the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Research, which will help students with everything from, helping them find tutors or writing mentors, study skills. If students have a diagnosed learning difference like a dyslexia or a processing issue, that organization would help them, navigate Middlebury through those challenges as well. And so there's a lot of support. There's also just a ton of personal support. Every student here has a faculty advisor. Every student here has access to mental health counseling. Every student has access to career and internship advising. I am very biased towards these smaller schools, but that's what you get at a small school. A student faculty ratio of 9-to-1. People are going to know you. They're going to be your coach. They're going to be in your corner and not let you fall through the cracks. Whereas I think at a school where you're in a first year lecture of 300 kids, I don't know that the same level of support would exist there.
Well, that's amazing that you have a 9-to-1 student to faculty ratio. That really is a great number. And you talk about community and having an intimate feel. That's about as intimate as it gets. So we appreciate that, Sam. And looking towards the future, what exciting yeah,
John,
please.
I don't mean to interrupt, but can I
Please.
add one? Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
So I started doing college admissions work 25 years ago, and back then everybody required testing, and the testing was one of the first things we looked at. I was actually one of the last holdouts to get on board with going test optional. And this is something that people ask us all the time. There's a lot of anxiety around the testing piece. And so I will tell you, as a longtime veteran of this work who used to really like having the test, if you're nervous about the testing and a school says they're test optional, don't sweat it. The testing, as somebody who reads thousands of these applications every year, I'm telling you, the testing is a very minor piece when it's there. And when it's not there, we don't miss it. And so there's a ton of information on a transcript, grades, the rigor of your courses, what your teachers say about you. So if there's one good thing to have come out of the pandemic, it might be that colleges have really moved away from testing and the pressure around testing and the pressure that I've seen families, to pay thousands of dollars for test prep. I want everybody who hears me to hear me say, you just don't have to worry about it as much as you're probably worrying about it. It really is a much more minor piece than you might think.
Well, we appreciate that. And again, I love your points earlier in terms of the percentages of students that applied test optional and what's the percentage of the students that were admitted, particularly when schools are about equal. That's a true indication that schools that said that they're test optional really mean it. And it's also the reason why in most of my podcast episodes, it is a question that I definitely talk about. And another thing that I'll mention is that because students that are scoring well are submitting their tests, it's very important to be mindful, students and parents, that the mid 50% these days are much higher, right, than they were 5-10 years ago, obviously. So again, Sam, we really appreciate all of that. And looking towards the future, What exciting developments or initiatives is Middlebury College undertaking to enhance the student experience even further, along with your academic offerings? And how do you see them evolving in the coming years?
There's no college that can just rest on its laurels and stand still. And so academically, Middlebury has some exciting new programs. There's a really exciting new program in data studies and data science. There's an exciting new program in what we're calling conflict transformation. Frankly, if our elected members of Congress all had gone to Middlebury College, maybe we would get more done, to really study how to work across difference and how to work across conflict and through conflict. There are new programs in Black Studies. There's a new program in LGBTQ plus support. There's all kinds of wonderful support in affinity spaces. One of the questions we get a lot here is, well, look, you're in Vermont. Vermont's a small place. It is historically an overwhelmingly white place. Does that mean that Middlebury is not reflective of the diversity of the world that we live in? And it very much is. And I think there's programs, both academic and social, really trying to allow Middlebury to mirror the world that we live in, and prepare kids to enter that world and be major change makers in that world. So there's always exciting new programs. This is a place, computer science, when I started here 10 years ago, was not a huge department. It's just exploded, especially because students can apply that kind of technical skill perhaps as a double major, across other disciplines as well. So it's just exciting to work at a school where, we're not sitting still. We're trying to recognize, what does the world need as we continue to address problems? And we're trying to come up with programs that address those problems and address those needs.
Well, you're right. It's very important not to stay stagnant, right? It's always important to keep bettering yourselves. And you talk about all your new programs in data studies, conflict transformation, Black studies, LGBTQ plus support. Comp sci continues to be on the rise, obviously. So it really does sound like there's something for everyone, both inside of your classroom and beyond. Sam, this has been an awesome conversation. Before I get to the last question, I have to ask, is there a question I didn't ask today or a topic that didn't come up that you'd like to share with us now?
I would just say people get stressed out about the college process, and believe it or not, listeners, this is a lot of fun.
Hmm.
Um, and it should be a lot of fun. Every college has a different personality, has a different vibe. There's a different feel that you're going to get when you walk around. And that can be a lot of fun. And so I encourage you all to see it as the college process isn't about convincing the college that you're the right kid for them. It's really a matchmaking process. Go out there and get to know these schools and really get to know yourselves and figure out which schools speak to you. And that, when that's done well, it actually can be a ton of fun. So I hope that you're all out there actually enjoying the process and not just stressing out about it the whole time.
Well, that's great advice. And it leads us to the last question, which is, Sam, what are your top three pieces of advice that you would provide students and their parents going through the college admissions process?
Students, this process is about you.
Hmm.
It's not about the college. They call it the college process, but it's not the college process. So if you're starting with the finish line, right? Oh my God, I would love to have, the Princeton sticker on the back of the family minivan. So I should just figure out how to convince Princeton to let me in. That's not the college process. So start with you, students. Who are you? What makes you tick? What do you need out of your education? If you start with that, you're going to have the outcome that you want. Parents, with all due respect to, I'm a parent myself. I get it. Parents, my best advice to you is ask questions rather than give answers. When you take a tour and you get in the car at the end of the tour, ask your children lots of questions before you say, well, here's what I thought.
Mhm.
And you
Great
might be
advice.
surprised. You might be surprised at how much you learn about your own kids when you ask really good questions rather than give them the answers.
Well, Sam, those are great pieces of advice for both students and their parents. I really appreciate you being here today and sharing your expertise. I'm so happy, as I know it's going to help so many students as they navigate the process. I do hope to have you again, Sam. Thank you so much.
John, this was a blast. Thank you for having me, and thank you for showcasing Middlebury. And people out there, enjoy the process. And if you have any questions, just look me up. I'm happy to answer your emails.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Sam. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college process. Take care, everyone, and best wishes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the CAP.
Hey, podcast friends, if you've been enjoying the College Admissions Process Podcast, I'm excited to share my new book, Straight from the Admissions Office, Insider Strategies for College Applications. It's packed with insights and tips from over 250 podcast episodes with admissions professionals designed to make the college process less overwhelming. Whether you're a student, parent, or college counselor, it's a valuable resource for navigating the admissions process. By grabbing a copy, you're also helping to support the podcast. The links are in the show notes. Thank you, and best wishes to all with the college admissions process.